Welcome to Upticks. I'm Jake Falcon, the founder of Falcon Wealth Advisors and your host of Upticks. Today is episode 131, Mortgages. Okay, thank you for joining me back on the show. I hope all of you out there are staying safe and healthy during this horrible pandemic. For today's topic, I wanted to dive into mortgages. The topic has been coming up more often in my meetings with clients, and I think it's an interesting subject to talk about when you're dealing with your financial plan. So this show is for you if you have a mortgage, or if you're considering buying a home where you will have a mortgage. And I want to talk about whether you should pay it off or not, refinance, and things that you should consider. Now, with interest rates plummeting, mortgage rates have also come down significantly. And so under the current environment, and if you have a mortgage, you may have been considering refinancing, which we think that is a fantastic opportunity to definitely look at that. Now, one caveat before I go into much detail is that it always, first and foremost, always we want to have a conversation. So we want to look at your financial plan before we make any final decisions. And we can actually run the numbers of keeping your current mortgage and paying that off over 15 or 30 years or however many years you have left, refinancing it at a lower payment, hopefully, and looking at what that does to impact the plan, or just paying it off, ripping the Band-Aid. And if you owe $300,000-$400,000, what does that look like if you just pay it off? Right. So these are all different scenarios that, unfortunately, for today's show, I can't just say, here's the magic bullet. This is exactly what you should do. No brainer, because it's not. Everybody's situation is a little bit different. So today, like I said, I want to go over some of those situation and items to consider. Okay. So if you have a mortgage today, you want to first revisit your interest rate that is printed on your monthly statement, right? So even if you have automatic payments, they should be mailing you or emailing you, or there should be a login that you can go look at your interest rate. Now, I have heard rates as low as around 2%, which is crazy. So I think if you can get under 3, or typically save a point. So if your current mortgage is 4%, if you can refinance and get that to 3%, normally that makes pretty good sense. Now, you also want to be careful though, because these mortgage lenders aren't going to do this transaction with you for free. So there will be some administrative cost, and you want to simply ask the mortgage lender, what is my break even? So if I'm going to have to pay you to refinance, how many years do I need to stay in my home to make that money back? Right? And they'll tell you what the break even is. And it should be pretty low, but you want to be cognizant of that, because if you're already considering moving and you have a mortgage, it probably doesn't make sense to refinance, pay fees, sell your home, pay off the mortgage, and then go get a new mortgage, right? So if you're not going to stay in your home, typically, again, I think the break even is around 5 years, but everybody's situation is different. So you want to just discuss this with a mortgage lender, and it should be a very common question that they are certainly able to answer. Okay, so if you're looking at refinancing, I like to typically save a point as a general rule. Again, you may save less, you may save more on the interest rate. And then you want to find out what that break-even price is. So then I hear a lot of the next question I hear a lot of is, well, Jake, should I do a 30-year or a 15-year mortgage? Now, 30-year are great. And, some people might be 60 years old and refinancing their mortgage and say, Jake, I'm not going to have this thing paid off until I'm 90. Is that okay? And in some circumstances, it absolutely is. Now, here's how it works though. So if you get a 30-year mortgage, typically your monthly payment, and this may be obvious, is going to be lower than in a 15-year, right? Because you have longer to make these payments. Now, you will ultimately end up paying more interest to the mortgage company. However, your monthly payment may be half as much. I don't know. You'd have to crunch the numbers again with the mortgage person, but it's going to be considerably lower. So the question is, if you get a 30-year mortgage, what are you going to do with that savings and cash flow? Is it going to allow you to pull less from your nest egg? If you're still working, are you going to save that money or pay off debt? So you want to have a plan. If you're going to get a 30-year mortgage, what is that going to do? What are you going to do with that difference in cash flow? If you're going to just go blow it anyways, right, and spend it on unbudgeted things, then there's a big argument to go ahead and getting a 15-year mortgage. And as long as you can sustain and afford the cash flow, then you're going to get a much more disciplined approach to paying off that mortgage sooner. Also, though, if you get the 30-year mortgage, there's nothing typically, and again, you want to ask your mortgage lender this, there's nothing typically wrong with paying extra payments. But the good news is you don't have to. So if you have a good year or whatever, and you've got some extra money and you want to make an extra payment or extra 5 payments or whatever, or double up your payments, you can do that, but you don't have to. So again, so there's all these different scenarios, and that's, unfortunate for the show is there's not a one size fits all category here, right? So we look at that. We want to save at least typically around a percentage point, not always, but that's a good general thought. You want to figure out what those mortgage refinancing costs are going to be. And then when looking at a 30 versus a 15, you want to say, okay, this is how it's going to adjust my cash flow. Jake and his team can run the numbers to show me what that looks like on a projection. But most importantly, if I do the 30-year, what am I going to do with that excess savings? Right? Am I going to just spend less from my IRA? Or am I going to save more in my 401k? Or am I going to pay off a credit card or a car loan or something charging me higher interest? Then that's okay. Okay, so let's lead into the third question here, which is very popular. Do I just go ahead and pay it off? And before I go into that topic, I want to give a quick plug here. If you want to subscribe, mash on that subscribe button. I'm very humbled. We've gotten a ton of new subscribers lately. And the only sure way to make sure you don't miss another episode of Upticks is to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, to go ahead and subscribe to our show, and you'll continue to receive our content as it's available. Okay, so should you just rip the Band-Aid and pay it off? Now, there's two considerations on this. So some say, okay, Jake, I get it, rates are low, but you know what? I've got enough money. I can just pay this mortgage off. I don't want to have a payment. Now, from a psychological standpoint, many of our clients were raised by their parents to not have any debt as you go into retirement. And there's a real reason behind this. And the reason is their parents typically grew up during the Depression when times were very tough and you didn't want to have debt because you didn't know what was going to happen to your income, which is a very real problem. And, most of us that are watching this show are fortunate that we didn't grow up during that time frame, but that's been instilled from a psychology point of view to many of our clients. And so I think that's why a lot of them do want to pay off their homes. And I'm not suggesting that that's the worst thing that you could do. Right. But again, you want to go back to your financial plan and look at it. And my argument, maybe not argument, it's maybe not a good word, but typically what I want to look at, though, is if you're truly going to save the money that you have versus that you would spend to pay off the mortgage, if that money can grow at 6, 7, 8% a year, and your mortgage is only costing you 2 or 3, then the numbers should show that it actually pays not to pull money out of the market to pay off a mortgage, particularly an IRA, because then it's also taxed. So it's not making you 6, 7, 8%. It's taxed, and then you're putting it on a house, which may or may not appreciate. Now, there's another important point to make is there's no guarantee, obviously, that your investments are going to make 6, 7, or 8%. Right? So that's something to look at is what is the opportunity cost by not having your money invested versus paying down a mortgage. Right? Now, the argument against that is, though, look, I'm de-risking it. I've got the money, Jake. You say my financial plan looks good. Now my cash flow outlay is going to be significantly lower because I don't have a mortgage. Right? So again, I'm not saying that always keeping your money invested is the right thing to do. For many of our clients, it works. For many of our clients, they do pay off their mortgages. It all goes back to your financial plan. Right? Can you afford to do it? So if you can afford, then now we go back into the psychology. Well, what's going to help you, be more comfortable with your financial plan moving into retirement? Are you comfortable leveraging your assets and having debt? Some people are fine with that. Some say, you know what, that's great. I understand leverage, Jake, but I really just don't want to have any debt. I've worked very hard for 30 years and I want to be debt free. Well, that's okay too, right? And so these are all things that we consider. and we want to crunch the numbers for you. Before I conclude today's episode, there's another important piece to remember, though. We also consider mortgages what are classified as good debt. And the reason they're good debt is that you can, not always, but you can potentially deduct your mortgage interest from your taxes. Now, you have to, again, be above the standard deduction, which many people aren't able to do that anymore because the standard deduction is a lot higher, particularly if you're married. However, if you are above it, that is another item to consider because you can't deduct all interest, right? You can't deduct credit card interest or car interest, right? So you can deduct your mortgage if you're over the standard deduction. So again, something to consult your CPA on or your accountant to see if that is something that would be beneficial for your taxes. Okay, so again, there's a lot of things that go into mortgages. We're happy to crunch the numbers with you. I have great conversations with mortgage lenders all the time also. So if you want to bring us in the conversation, we can do that as well and help you make a good informed decision. There are no guarantees though, right? Even if you pay off your house, the market could shoot up, or if you don't pay off your house, the market could go down. So there's all these different factors to consider. Most importantly, we want to plug that in your financial plan, take a look at things, and help you make a good informed decision. Okay, so that's all the time that I do have for you today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Quick shout out to Corey Bittner, my business partner. He has his own show on our YouTube channel and on all the various podcast platforms called In the Money Insight. Be sure to check that out for more great organic content from your friends at Falcon Wealth Advisors. Also, I'm out there on 4 social media platforms. So I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If we're not already connected, please feel free to send me a friend request. I love adding to my network. Our team, Falcon Wealth Advisors, we're also out there on those same platforms. So on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. If you want to follow our company page, our company will also push out content and posts. For my quick topic, I've got a special thank you to all of our amazing clients at Falcon Wealth Advisors and, of course, my team. I was recently selected to be in Forbes 2021 Best in State Wealth Advisors. Very humbled by that. There's some amazing financial advisors across the country that are included in that list. And to be included in that group of people is a humbling honor. So thank you to our clients. Obviously, that doesn't happen if we don't have great clients. And thank you to my team at Falcon Wealth Advisors. We've got a fantastic group of people around us, around Corey and I, supporting us and supporting the clients. And it's showing. And it's nice to be recognized. And again, very humbling. So with that, thank you again so much for tuning in. I hope you stay safe and healthy and have a great week.